back 118 days now, February the 24th. I think we all woke in a slight sense of shock with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Like many in the tech community, we had founders that we'd invested in who were Ukrainian. Many of our companies had developers or teams in Ukraine. And in the next 24 hours, I think it's fair to say all of our channels that we interact with founders or team members was on fire, trying to respond, figure out what we could potentially do, given the scale of what was, pretty obviously going to follow. So on the 28th of February, we convened a group. It was open to all of our founders, all of the teams, anyone else who wanted to be involved or try and figure out what the hell we could do, just to share some high-level ideas. And we invited Irra, who is a founder that we backed through Local Globe. Day job is running a company called Zamna, although probably spent a little bit less time on that over the last 3 months. And Irra described in a very direct way, well, the scale of what was happening with many family members in Ukraine, but also the quite incredible things that she and her team from Zamna were doing to provide immediate micro-level support to the people who are most affected by the invasion. So a combination of every single social channel you can imagine, combination of Ukrainian, Russian, English, Polish, and bringing all of these mini crises that were developing and matching them to proven networks or individuals who could provide that micro-level support. So I think in amongst the sort of the trauma and the shock, we came off that call quite blown away by, in the space of 4 days, how much Irra and the team had already been able to achieve. In the same way that we evaluate founders and the impact they're having, I think the first conversation we had a team afterwards was like, we have to support this. If Irra and the team are able to do this with this tiny amount of funding or capital, what would it take for us to massively increase the impact? And Irra will explain a lot more about what they do. So we very quickly got together. We helped establish a company called Sunflower Relief. If you don't know, sunflower is the national flower of Ukraine. Emma, that was your idea in the kind of discussion that we had afterwards. And our role was really just to help provide some funding to get the operation up and running. And then in the same way that I think we've done in other cases, provide connective tissue to other investors, individuals who may also be able to help. So without any further ado, I'll let Irra explain much more about what they're doing with Sunflower Relief.
I'm sorry to be standing between you and lunch, but I'll be fast. I time myself. This takes 6 minutes. So sunflower is not a weak flower. You can see them over there in the glasses. To cut one down, you need a machete. I mean, this flower is going to put up a fight. So we quite like being named this. So why me? This is me in the middle. In 1992, I left Ukraine when I was 9. But my father's still here, there, I should say, rather than here, both my grandparents. And when I was calling them and asking, what can you see? What's happening? Where's the aid? Where's the support you're getting? They said, what do you mean? So I thought, if not me, then who? So where it all began is actually, there's a screenshot from the 26th, which basically says, as number 10, if you can read this, it says just to use me as your bank. If you need to get out, if you need to do something, use me as your bank. I don't care how much you need. I will find the money somehow. This was just trying to help with every single credit card and app that I could. PayPal didn't come to Ukraine until a month later, so it was a nightmare because the bank shut down for 10 days, and we didn't know what was going to happen. And then the other screenshot is 1,887 of my friends donating to just a crowdfunding that I set up on day 2, because I realized, again, things were needed fast. And while aid agencies are brilliant, it felt a little bit like I was calling 911 saying I have a heart attack, and they were saying, go for a waiting list in a doctor's surgery, and we might see you in a few weeks. That's what it felt like. And so on 28th of February, as Yuma said, we had this call here. We took a screenshot of it, and this room is actually right at the top. This is the big meeting room over there at Phoenix Court. And we set up Sunflower Relief Limited. thanks to everyone at Local Globe, I had to do absolutely zero admin, not even the name or any of the really difficult details that you need to do when you're setting up a company, because quite frankly, and I still feel like I'm a shallow person standing there in front of you today, it just feels like every day you're at a funeral, and that's what it feels like. So the problem we're solving is that foreign aid couldn't find a good way in. I'm sure if I asked for hands up, like who's donated to something to do with Ukraine, most of your hands would go up. And if I said, keep your hand up if you know exactly where it ended up, it would go down. Because most people start with, this is what we have, not what is needed. And so the aid got stuck. This is the formal government website of Ukrainian aid agencies. And they're showing you that actually all of the action is in the east. That's not where the aid is. And that's where the aid needs to get to. So we flipped the model. Most people start on the left-hand side of this diagram, which is we have the supply, or we have these goods, or we've raised this funding, and we have the aid. You know, we hope it gets to someone who needs it. And this impulse is very great and good. However, if you don't have a goal, it's like us going for a journey in a car with no destination. Where are we driving to? Well, I don't know. Somewhere. You're not going to get there. So we flipped the model, and we started with the right side of inside Ukraine, and our focus is people who can't leave the borders for whatever reason, and they cannot access foreign support. And we start by verifying individuals, requests, organizations, and we built a network now of local NGOs we work with so that we can channel exactly what's needed, not waste it, and meet the exact need, rather than hoping that something we collect over here gets to someone who needs it. So we do aid backwards, and it works really well. This is a screenshot of the nightmare that our operations represent. I think when Local Globe backed me as CEO of Zamna, that probably saw in the last 3 years how I scale people and process, and that's all you need to do with any operational nightmare. So it's pretty true to say that the first few days were insane. This is just the first week and a half of us aggressively building things, raising money, begging, borrowing, and stealing talent. Some of our developers were still in Ukraine, and I could hear bombs falling down on Zoom in the background as they were building everything you're seeing today online. So to date, this is actually already out of date, we've now raised double this amount as a result of some cool stuff I'm about to show you, and we have helped over 150,000 people now through over 500 cases. We're on a case about 504. We had no idea about aid on the 26th of Feb. We now know how to build a process, and we know how to create those logistical chains and how to really, really pressure people to give us stuff for free to get it there. So we either want the stuff, or we want funding to get the stuff, or to pay for the stuff to get there. And we know exactly how to do that now. So we have over 200 volunteers, and you know, volunteer fatigue is real. We had to start paying people. People just are burnt out. Of course they're burnt out, but we're still going. So this is a good example of some ways in which we follow up to make sure exactly we know where the aids ended up. This is a maternity hospital. They deliver 80 babies a day. Babies don't stop coming because of the war. In fact, it's even more difficult because now the maternity hospital is full of wounded people, and they still have to deal with the mums and the babies. So that's one example. I'm not going to talk you through this, but you can see in 3 slides what an absolute logistical nightmare humanitarian aid is. It is spreadsheets, it is detailia, it is operational nightmares in multiple languages, and in a war zone where things can just change overnight. Luckily, we partner with local people who are already serving their community in Ukraine, so that last mile can really be done directly to the individuals who need it the most. And we specialize in in-country, in-Ukraine support for civilians only. So we don't sponsor the military, we don't sponsor soldiers, but we do help people who happen to be caught in this conflict. We believe if you can reach foreign borders and access foreign help, you can probably get the support you need. But if you can't, we do all of this to bring it to you. And that's another example of how we follow up. You know, we get photos, videos, live verifications of the stuff that's actually reaching real people on the ground in Ukraine. Very, very importantly, we don't touch the money at Sunflower Relief. The aid money and the operational money are completely segregated for a good reason. And see what I did there? We match foreign aid with individual cases. Why? Because we're not the ones who need the money or the funding or the stuff. And you can go directly to a local verified Ukrainian NGO. You know exactly the case you're helping. We're starting to think about it a little bit like Indiegogo or a GoFundMe, but case specific. And then we're finding that founders and donors actually feel emotionally connected to a case. You know, if you've helped unlock this local armored ambulance, that's great. We had a donor this morning who helped unlock a shipment of meals for a school with 3,500 refugees. And we have videos of this stuff arriving. It's very real, it's very tangible. It's not, I'm donating into a black void and I hope it gets to somewhere. Donating world is very broken. It's actually really sadly broken. And we're trying to use everything we've learned as tech people to help it. So Sunflower's mission is twofold: the aid in, which I just showed you, and the info out. The info out bit started as a spreadsheet, like everything else did in this organization. We now have, thanks to Local Globe, we have a Muse AI library run by Ziv, who's somewhere here, and we make a library of first-hand accounts from the ground available to journalists in exchange for donations. So that's another way that we're fighting the information war: aid in, info out. Now, it's not over. It's far from over, and it's a little bit, you know, again, like you are at the funeral's over, everyone goes home, but you're still grieving. And that's really hard, because then you start feeling isolated. And the truth is, we are going to do whatever we can to keep the story alive. I've been on Sky News, I've been on all sorts of things, and why do we need the story alive? Because we need to get either support or the money to get the support to ship the stuff across. So this was the launch of the network when Sol and Remus and Emma and Rian, who's somewhere here, worked super hard to make it all happen. And since then, we have done some really crazy stuff. So this was in the last month. We did something that I termed Mission Impossible. There's a quote from Mandela from a wonderful man called Brent Hoberman, who some of you will know, who basically gave me a Mission Impossible with these two people. So two people on the left ended up in Kiev in Ukraine. They're still there, in fact. And we filmed a hologram of a bunch of people. I'm the least important in that range. There was a lot more influential people online. You can see that for yourself. But also, I convinced President Zelensky's team to work with us on this. This was not just, hey, we want the president because he's such a popular speaker. This was, hey, Mr. President, we already deployed hundreds and thousands in aid on the ground, and here's the proof. And it turned out some of those local NGOs are part of his political party. That is how we convinced him to say yes after 4 no's. You pretty much need to be a startup CEO to do something like this. And so I wanted to just show you some fun stuff here. Can I actually just play this for 30 seconds? This is a speeded up version, so you don't have to watch the whole thing. But this is what it looked like on the day. It was pretty crazy. It's like giant holograms. This is Gayle King, much more famous woman than I am. This is one of the 7 events that we beamed the hologram into. It was live across Europe. There were 7 tech events on in the same day. There was a person from Genesis there. There's Amanda Holden popping up and down. And this is a Ukrainian singer, this gentleman here. And then comes the Ukrainian flag. And of course, very excitedly, Senor Zelensky comes on with a message. You can see he's wearing a Star Wars t-shirt. Because the hologram idea was very, you know, Empire Strikes Back, it's green, it's futuristic. It was a stunt we pulled to get the story alive and to put some positive energy behind that message. And it worked. We raised over $1 million on the day, thanks to this. I'm just trying to get across. Thank you very much. As any startup CEO will tell you, $1 million doesn't go very far. So the reality is, it's the same thing I've always done as CEO at Zamna. It's scaling people, scaling process, and finding money. It is no different. So our ask today is 2 things. You can either choose to donate to our aid work and support a live case. We have all of them online at sunflowerrelief.com/cases, and I have leaflets which I will bombard you with during lunch. Sorry, not sorry. In case you do want to look at the cases and actually support something meaningful, either as an individual or as a corporation. And number 2, if you want to join Remus, Sol, and the team at Phoenix School Works in operationally supporting us, that would be truly appreciated as well, because we do not believe that aid donations should be going on our operations. So we make sure that those 2 are separate missions. So you can see quickly, we're not alone. We have a lot of wonderful people who are super experts in law, in actually counterterrorism work, in professional aid work that are advising us all day, every day. They're extraordinary. They're also online. And just from the whole team, there's little hearts for you. Thank you so, so much. And if you scan this, you will get my eternal gratitude and love from everyone in Sunflower Relief. Thank you so much, guys.